Hi guys, so the UK Supreme Court has ruled that the Scottish Parliament cannot hold a second independence referendum without Westminster approval. Now, delivering the judgment this morning, the Supreme Court President Lord Reid said the Scottish Parliament did not have the power to legislate for a referendum on independence because such a bill would relate to the future of the Union of the United Kingdom, and this is a matter reserved just for Westminster. The SNP had put forward some arguments to the Supreme Court, but these were rejected. Here the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, reacted to the ruling.
Scotland is a nation and voluntarily entered into the Union as a partner. That sentiment was echoed nearly 60 years later by the Calman Commission, which described the UK as a voluntary union and partnership. And it was reinforced in 2014 by the Smith Commission, which made clear that nothing in its report prevented Scotland becoming an independent country should the people of Scotland so choose. What today's ruling tells us, however, is that the Scotland Act does not, in fact, uphold that long-held understanding of the basis of the relationships that constitute the UK. On the contrary, it shatters that understanding completely. Let's be absolutely blunt. A so-called partnership in which one partner is denied the right to choose a different future, or even to ask itself the question, cannot be described in any way as voluntary or even a partnership at all. So this ruling confirms that the notion of the UK as a voluntary partnership of nations, if it ever was a reality, is no longer a reality.
Now, so where does this take us? What's the next step here? Before we get to that, I think it's important to point out what Nicola Sturgeon is saying here, that is it a voluntary union? Well, how is it a voluntary union if one partner of that union is not allowed to leave and not allowed to hold a referendum to ask itself a question, can I leave? I made an analogy during the post-stream chat on Tuesday night ahead of this vote, or ahead of this ruling, sorry. The analogy was an apartment, and you have 4 people living in an apartment together. Now, each individual in the apartment has different roles to play, but one individual is responsible for collecting the money and paying the bills. Now, one member of the household, one partner within the apartment, decides, I want to leave. I'm not happy with this situation. I want to go. Should it be right that another member says, no, you're not allowed to go? Yes, you leaving will have an impact on paying the rent. You leaving will have an impact on paying the bills. But should that be a reason for not allowing another member or another partner or a member of the household to leave? I don't believe that's the case. So if it's a voluntary union, which the unionists continue to say it is, then surely Scotland should be allowed to leave. Now, the question I would ask unionists is, how can Scotland become independent? Can Scotland become independent, first of all? If you say no, it can't, then it's not a voluntary union. If it can, then what is the process? What do they have to do in order to become independent? Because if it's Westminster deciding, and we've heard from the Tories who said, no, we're not going to support another referendum, and we've heard from the Labour Party who at the moment say they're not supporting a second referendum, then what is the path out? You know, I posted on Twitter, Scots saying, we're prisoners. Unionists responding saying, no, you're not. Scots saying, can we leave? And unionists saying, no, you can't. This is a prison. How is it not a prison if you're not allowed to leave? What is the way forward here? Well, the way forward is obviously for the SNP and the Green Party, who both support independence, to have a de facto referendum through a general election. So they will say, we're going to run with a manifesto that we're going to declare independence if we win a majority. Now, what type of majority remains to be seen. But if they win a majority, they will declare independence. And can you blame them? They asked for a Section 30, which would allow Scotland to hold a referendum. This is where a reserved power in Westminster is given to Scotland as a devolved power so that they can hold a referendum. They have asked for a Section 30 on a number of occasions, and the Tories have responded with no. So this is the alternative. And if somebody can think of another alternative, please do point it out. But to say that the Scottish people can't have a referendum at the moment is a denial of their democracy. A majority of people in Scotland voted for parties that support independence. Can't have a referendum? Okay, then we have to go another route. I believe in January, the SNP are going to hold a special conference where they're going to discuss what they're going to do next. But I think the only solution left is to have a de facto referendum. I'm not a fan of referendums. I think the problem is that many of them are influenced by outside entities. We've seen with Brexit, for example, dark money being pumped in to support a particular point of view. I think the best approach is through the Scottish Parliament. Now, of course, that's going to face roadblocks from Westminster. But it begs the question, if Scotland is an equal partner, then how does it leave the flat? Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.